You're fired. That's what we're talking about tonight. Welcome back to The Big Idea. We're talking about getting fired, what you do about it. Some of the most successful people in the universe have been fired. There's somebody who's been fired from 4 jobs, came back to sell her company for hundreds of millions of dollars. Real estate tycoon, Barbara Corcoran.
The wheeler dealer, Barbara Corcoran. The Big Idea. She turned a $1,000 loan into a real estate empire. And it all started when she blew her first sales commission on a brand new coat. Dressed for success, she used a winning attitude to take on Manhattan. Soon, she was publishing her own newsletter, plastering her face on billboards, and attracting the top clients in real estate. The pink slip. Barbara had 22 other jobs before she started her own company and was fired from 4 of them. But that didn't stop her from building an empire worth billions.
Barbara Corcoran, one of my favorite real estate tycoons. Tycoons, not tycoons. Welcome to The Big Idea. How you doing?
My pleasure.
Okay, so you've been fired 4 times. It's amazing how many brilliant, successful people I talk to, or I'm talking to on the show tonight, who've been fired. And, you know, people think of that as death. It certainly is not, obviously.
Only for the moment it happens. You have to look back to figure out what's so good about it.
Okay, talk to me the first time you were fired from doing what?
Well, the first time I was a secretary and I was being chased by my boss, an older guy who was constantly chasing me around the office. I used to cajole him, please him, smile at him, but when it got a little bit serious and I didn't reciprocate, I was fired.
It's amazing how many women over the years, because I've worked with so many women, have told stories. It doesn't have, obviously this harassment happens today, but it was so rampant years ago, and women didn't know they could do anything about it then, and they just would either leave a job or get fired. How many brilliant women I've talked to who, in their first jobs in their early 20s, had to go through that.
Yeah, I was good looking enough then, and people really chased me. That wasn't a problem when I was fired much later on.
And okay, next job you were fired from?
I was actually working for a tent company, and I said I was a secretary, and I typed fast and took great steno, but obviously I sold them a bill of goods. I wasn't quite as fast as I told them I was, and I was fired from that job.
And how did people fire you? Give me the receiving end, because obviously you've then had to fire people in your career. Let's talk about the receiving end and how you got it.
Well, first of all, when people fire you, I find that people are never honest about it. They'll tell you it hasn't worked out, and they'll give you some safe reason why it's not working out. They never name it.
Which is the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
You need to be honest, because the more honest you are, the better the people feel about it, because 9 times out of 10, it's just a fit that's wrong.
Yeah.
You know, most people are competent. Now, there are some jerks out there and idiots and people who are just lazy bums or dishonest. That's a different story. But I find with people, when you are honest with them, then they can learn, and you're basically kind of liberating them, because they're not happy either. If they're about to get fired, unless they're idiots, on some level.
Do you know, people know the truth.
They do. They just don't want to deal with it, but they know it.
But it's great to hear the truth, because then it brings it to conclusion and people move on. When people don't know what the ending is, it's really rough on them. They wonder for a long time.
So give me, for instance, one of the time you were fired being a secretary, what they said, what you were, versus what you wish they said.
Yeah, they said to me, I don't remember exactly, but something to the effect that you don't really fit in here, the job description we thought we needed isn't quite right, so we really need somebody else, but it was all very, very vague. But what's interesting is after I walked out the door, I thought to myself, A, I feel guilty because I told them I was a heck of a good typist and stenographer, and I wasn't, but I also realized right then and there I was a pretty good salesman, because they bought into my bill of goods, and it was from there that I decided to go into sales.
So interesting, I'm going to guess something, agree or disagree with me. The good news is you realize you could sell anything. But then you probably realized after that about being a great salesperson, you got to be selling, it's got to be truthful, otherwise it falls apart at some level.
Absolutely.
So because it's like a marriage. If you sell yourself wrong, you know, maybe you'll get married or whatever, but somebody's going to end up being happy.
I've done that a few times.
Yes, so have I. You know, welcome to the club. But I'm bummed. But you basically realized at that point, you know, pretty much, wow, if I could sell myself as a typist, I could. So once again, you took something good out of it.
Unlikely typist, yes.
And what was the next job you got fired? We're going to get to your successes in a minute.
The next job, I was working as a hot dog stand lady on a highway, all right? And there was virtually no business. So when I wasn't selling hot dogs, I would go out and sit on the bench and look at the view. And so the boss came by, he'd check on me once or twice a day. I always knew when he was coming, but he came on an off hour and saw me sitting on the bench. What was wrong with it? I don't know. There was no customer there anyway. I was enjoying the view. But the fact is, I was fired.
Okay. The more successful you got, do those kind of experiences stay with you? Do they go away? Do they get heightened with you? Because it's all the, you know, I love, one of the favorite moments on this show I had when Harold Schultz, CEO of Starbucks, talks about he went to pick up a girl on a date and the father kind of looked down at him because he was from Brooklyn. And I think all of us take our knocks or our failures, the more successful we are, and we're almost proud of them in a strange way.
But can I tell you, when I was fired from those 4 menial jobs that anyone else would have probably said, thank you, I needed those jobs, so they're very hurtful. Yeah. I think once you become successful, you could handle being firing because you have the track record of being successful. It's the early jobs that kill you, but I really think the purpose of them is to move you along to find whatever you're going to be good at. And certainly I wasn't good at all 4 of those jobs.
That's another thing, the lesson for people out there. Just because you've been fired, just because you've been failing at things, you may be in the wrong things. Once again, if you're lazy, you know that. If you're incompetent, you know that. But if you've just been banging your head against the wall, getting fired a little bit, all that means is probably you're on the wrong track. Look for a different track. There's a lot of people also who end up out of work middle age, and because obviously they're so frightened they want to stay in the same place they're at, maybe that's the time to try something new. Tell me about firing people. What's been your style?
Firing people for me has been very easy. I used to fire people. No, I mean it. Because I always felt I had tried everything and the fit just wasn't there. So when I would fire someone, my business partner, Esther, would always say they walked out of my office looking like they just got a promotion. But I really positioned it that way because they were wrong for the job. So why stick them in that spot?
Exactly.
But I think also why people like being fired by me, if you could actually say that, is they really knew specifically why they were fired, and they really also knew I had tried everything to avoid the firing.
Do you also, along those lines, do you set it up before? It should never be a complete surprise to somebody.
No,
if somebody's being fired, somewhere along the line, they need to be warned, forget even for legal reasons, told. But then you're right. I can't tell you the amount of times afterwards, and it's been always, to this day, it's been very difficult for me. But sometimes people are pleased because you've taught them, they realize, you know what? It's not that I suck. It's just maybe this is the wrong thing. And sometimes people do suck, once in a while, but chances are they won't even get into your organization or my organization in the first place. So you're talking about competent people overall.
Yes.
But, it's just not right for everybody.
No, it's not right for everybody. But firing was the easier side of the table. I didn't mind doing that, but I sure hated being fired.
There you go. So tell the story again. You've been on the show once before, but I love the story, how you sold your first apartment. It's because it's just business intuition and entrepreneurship 101.
Well, I wasn't fired for that. I perhaps should have been by the New York Times. I took a 1-bedroom apartment that was identical to every other apartment being rented in the marketplace in Manhattan, and I constructed or convinced the owner to construct a half wall, and I called the L in the living room a den, and I advertised that apartment. Instead of a 1-bedroom for $340 a month, it became a 1-bedroom and den for $340 a month. And so, of course, I got thousands of phone calls. It was like a steam shovel through the New York Times. Everyone called me because I offered something extra. Same apartment, but repackaging. And certainly, Donny, you know all about that.
It's all about packaging, kid. Okay, I want lessons for folks out there, both in terms of sensitivity if they're about to be fired, signs they should look for, and also if they are fired, what's some great next steps afterwards?
One very important thing to realize is half the people who are fired are not fired because there's something wrong with them. It's because something's wrong on the other side. So you have to really assess, is it really me? My husband, Bill Higgins, who was an FBI agent after he left the agency, he went on to become a land developer with a big construction company. He was fired, never told why, and it wasn't until 5 years later he learned that they were skimming money off the top, and they couldn't have an ex-FBI agent on the job. But he thought he didn't do the job good. So the first thing you want to ask is it really me? You're in a down position, so you really feel bad about it. But you have to stop and just say, hey, is it even me?
Yeah, that's a great piece. Anybody over the years you fired out there you want to give a love letter to right now? Guess what?
Yeah.
I screwed up, and boy, congratulations to you and dumb me. I'll do that also.
Yeah. You want the love letter? Yeah. For all those people I fired over the years, which must be at least 500 people in 30 years, I want to say, aren't you happy I fired you? You moved on and found something you really liked. And I met these people in the street. I walk around Manhattan. I constantly run into people I fired. They're always happy to see me, and I think it's because I helped them move on. How's that? Does that sound any good?
I want a specific, I'll give a specific one because I've always been pretty good at judging talent. It's probably the only thing I'm really good at. One guy, and I've seen him a few times over the years, and I always tell the story, a young copywriter. He wasn't even a copywriter, he was trying to be a copywriter. A kid named Hank Perlman, and he just was annoying me, and I just thought he sucked, and I ended up being one of the top commercial directors in the country, and so I like telling that story only because he's doing so well now.
Yeah, but annoying counts. If you didn't like him, what the heck?
I did like him, though. He was fantastic. He's a good kid. Well, Barbara Corcoran, always great lessons. What are you up to these days?
Nothing much. I'm working my buns off and not making any money.
That's not good. Wait a second. That does not sound like the Barbara Corcoran that I know.
Yeah.
Working your buns off, not making money? You must be in TV.
It's a new business.
You must be in TV.
You betcha.
I know what that means. There you go, Barbara.
Tell me where the money is, please.
Not in TV. It's a lot of fun. You're in the wrong business for TV.
Okay.
Barbara Corcoran, who built the Corcoran Group from ground up.